All right, welcome to another episode of Brilliant Wonders podcast. I am your host, Josi Jenson. You guys already know me by now, most likely. I am just piggybacking today. So last week we talked about overthinking in general, and I wanted to dive a bit deeper on why this overthinking tends to happen. I think the biggest thing to realize is that most of the time overthinking is something that we created as a safety mechanism in our life. It was easier or safer to be in our heads than to be in our bodies, whether that's due to trauma or pains or things that we don't want to feel. And it doesn't have to be just physical trauma. It can be emotional trauma. It can be big T as in a big trauma, little t's as in little traumas. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that we need to, not that you shouldn't discuss it, but it is something that is oftentimes where we go. And then we have this neural pathway that whenever there is something, a stressor or whatever, us overthinkers, not everybody's an overthinker, but us overthinkers will go to our minds to try to figure out the problem. We'll go to our minds to get out of our body. We'll go to our minds, to make it seem like we care, like all these different things. And I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in three ways or three limiting beliefs that can lead to overthinking. And these limiting beliefs is what we can actually work on. Especially, overthinking gets us in so much trouble. Not only in at the time, I often think back, I'm like, how many times have I overthought something that then created sabotage in my life, or it created missed opportunities, it created I missed joy out of it. I missed what was actually going on around me. I missed connection. There's just so many, overthinking probably has played a big role in my life in a good way when it was needed. But the repercussions of that is that no matter what it is that causes some stress or whatever in my body, physical, emotional, chemical, any of those things, it sends my nervous system into a pattern, a pathway that goes into overthinking and trying to problem solve it. And there's a few things that I've discovered on it as I dove deeper. And now you can replace overthinking, that might be my thing. Maybe that's not everyone's thing, right? You can replace overthinking with another habit, isolation, or sabotage, or overeating, or any sort of reaction that we have to stress. We can go input that word into what I'm talking about, figuring out the limiting beliefs around it. That's where we do the work on. We don't necessarily do the work on the reaction piece as much as we do on the cause of the reaction. Catching ourselves before we go into that reaction and not letting that neural pathway take over, and then creating new ones, right? So that's the point of this podcast today, is looking at some limiting beliefs around why overthinking happens, or why we get into that mode, so that we can bring our body back to safety. And yes, it may have served us at one point, but it's no longer serving us. So we want to make sure that we start to change those things, especially if you're looking for a life more full of presentness. We're looking for a life of joy. We're looking for a life of growth and this personal, professional development. If we're actually pushing the envelope of being different, and then our body goes into, oh, that's different, let's create safety and overthink, then pretty soon we've lost the momentum that we created. So I'd like to really dive into limiting beliefs, especially when I work with clients, because that is what's keeping us from moving forward. It's not because we don't want something. It's a lot of times these reactions that we have that once we start gaining momentum and changing and shifting who we are, who we want to be. And even you guys, it does not mean that there's like, when people think of growth and you start discussing growth and change and like what you want for your life, people have the misconception pretty often that things are bad. Like you aren't happy where you're at, so you're wanting to change it. And just know, like if you've been on this journey for a while, first off, it doesn't matter what they think. But secondly, that just because something isn't aligned with you, right now, it does not mean that it's necessarily bad. An example of this is I love chiropractic. I love my career in chiropractic. Like there was so much around that I absolutely loved. And when I decided to go and travel the world for a year and not practice chiropractic for a while, people thought that I was so unhappy in my job or in my day-to-day. And that wasn't it. It was that I had a nudge. I had a change that was in my heart. And the more that I tried to stay aligned or keep doing what I was doing in the past, even though it was good and life was good. You guys, I don't even know how to explain how great things were in living in my house on the water, having my own space. It was so cozy and so comfortable. I had a boyfriend at the time. Like there was just so many things that were so good. I had a boyfriend, I had connection, I had community, I had my friends. I had all these things that things were so good. And still on the inside, there was something that I was made for more. So then I wanted to change that. And when people see that on the outside, they're like, oh, she was unhappy in her job. Something must have been going on to make her want to leave. Like she was comfortable. What was like something happened, right? And the more that I stayed like kept moving forward in my new self, I kept working through some of the things that I'm going to be talking about with you today. The more it was like, you've got to let it go. Like it doesn't fit in your life right now. Like for what's next for you, you have to let it go. And then can you imagine how unsafe that felt for my brain? How easy it would have, or it was, to go into this neurologic pathway saying, hey, Mayday, like you need to think here. Are you being thoughtful? Are you being realistic? Are you being, like totally in your head, right? And a lot of times when people don't go for their dreams, it's because of this. It's because of it's not even that you like totally want a new life, a whole new you, a whole whatever. But as you're shifting and changing and really figuring out who you want to be, what you want to do, who you want to serve, to what spectrum are you going for? There are times where it doesn't make sense in the brain. It won't make sense. It'll actually show, like in your brain, it'll say, dude, you are uncomfortable. You are unsafe. Let's bring you back to, to what we know. Let's bring you back to safety. And that's not how we grow. So we have to work through these limiting beliefs. It doesn't mean that you hate your life right now. I think that's a huge thing. Just because you want to change something doesn't mean that you absolutely hate what you've got. Now, here's the deal. Sometimes we get to that point, right, where I freaking hate what I've got going on. Like, I'm not okay. Like, this has to change. Like, this is out of, like, pure desperation. And I know I've talked about this on podcasts before. There's, like, changing out of desperation. And there's just changing out of you're just not in alignment. Your life isn't aligned with who you are right now. And you need to make some changes. Either way, both of those changes are going to be interesting to your mind, and your mind can get in the way. So I really want to talk about these things. And these are just 3 limiting beliefs around overthinking. I'm sure we'd come up with so much more, but I think these will be really relatable for you. Okay, so for the overthinker, when we sometimes we move into that overthinking because we have this idea that if we think about it more and more and more, and it's always in our focus, that we care more. And I think about, parents, especially when they're, you're so worried about your kids growing up. Like, are they happy? Are they active? Are they not? Should I do vaccines? Should I not? Should I take them to school or should I homeschool? Like, should I let them go to that sleepover? Should I not? It's just like, okay, so many things to worry about with kids. And I can't say it's relatable because I don't have kids, but I see it over and over and over again. I take care of so many parents. I'm in my sister and my brother's kids' lives very much. I know, like, I can see what they go through and why overthinking and just thinking about it more and more and more means that you actually will come up with the answer. And it's like, if we don't continue to think about it, then we don't care enough, and that's so not true. It's like, when I think about the files going on in our subconscious, like, that's always happening back there. And luckily, we've got good files and I've got bad files. I've got files that could go away. I've got files that could be bigger, right? Like, that would be wonderful. But if we have a state of being where we are loving to ourselves and others, we are compassionate to ourselves and others, we do give grace to ourselves and to others, we are secure within ourselves and with others. We have trust within ourselves and with others. You see what I'm saying here? Like, if we have this this default in the back of our mind, knowing that we're doing the best that we can, we don't have to necessarily always focus on the problem right in front of us. Because how often have you guys, I've done this with computer work so many times, and I don't even know what changes. But if I'm struggling with something and I'm hyper-focused, I've worked on it all day long and I'm not getting anywhere, and then I say, you know what? I need to go for a walk. I go for a walk, I come back, I click a couple buttons, and here it is. The whole thing I've been working on all day long is complete or finished or whatever. Like, it worked. But it wasn't because I just kept thinking and pounding my head against the wall about it and focusing on it. It was because I stepped away and let things process. I think that's a big key here, is that how often do we try to hyper focus onto something to solve it, and really we needed it to process, which is a whole other thing, but we need it to process in order to come up with the answer. But we just keep hounding. Same as like studying for a test, right? Like, how often, I studied for a lot of tests throughout the years. Someone just talked about over this last weekend that they went back to school, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so hard. So hard. Taking tests on things that I'm not loving. That would be the hardest part. Taking tests on things that I don't like studying. Now I get to study whatever I want. Anyway. But how often was it that we would be working on something, learning something deep in it, and then we tried to just reverberate it, like teach it or, put it into practice right away. But yet our teachers or mentors or whoever, they said, okay, now we're going to take a break. My computer just is zooming in and zooming out because I'm using my hands to talk. But anyway, so how often do they say it's time for a break? We go and do our thing, go to lunch, go for a walk, put our feet up the wall, whatever. And then we come back to it. And then it's like processed in our brain. We gave it time, we gave it space. And then we came back, and neurologically it was like stored then, of some way, shape, or form. It was stored. So movement does that. I'm going to just give you that tip right now. Movement does that for you. So does sleep. We process when we move, and we process when we sleep. So anyway, those are some key points. But just remember that if you think and worry enough, like this limiting belief, if you think and worry enough, then it means that you care. So here's the last part of it. It means you care. If I don't think about it enough, then other people aren't going to think that I care enough. And is that true? First off, do people know what you're thinking? Not necessarily, right? It's not like I've got a bubble above my head that's, typing out everything that I'm thinking and other people can see it. But it's like a pat on your back saying, gosh, I've been thinking about this continuously. I've been thinking about this problem. And I don't think people would care that much. Now that I think about it, I don't think people would care. And if I didn't think about it all the time, but when it came time for me to speak up about it and I had the thoughts there, or I had the opinions, or I had the advice, I don't think I need to have it in the forefront of my brain the whole time in order for it to be something that I care about deeply. It may come up in my thoughts often, but I don't need to be hyper focused on it, because then if I am, I'm probably going to miss the answers or my truth or my perspective. Instead, I'll, be focused on this one perspective right in front of me. So the more you can open up your brain and not hyper focus on the thoughts that are going on inside of it, the more likely you are to start processing it in a way that's truthful, meaningful, and then you can actually, work through the problem. That's a big one, you guys. That's a big one. My aunt is going through some medical stuff with her husband right now. And I can't even imagine how hard it is to let that study, I don't even want to say the negative stuff about it, but also like the hyper focus on how to fix him, right? We have so much information right at our fingertips. And we can keep diving and digging and looking for the answers. And I'm not saying not to do that. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying if you can take the safety and the rumination over the same thoughts over and over again, if you can take that out and actually get to the prefrontal cortex, to the front of your brain, then you can process what you're studying and learning. I can't even imagine how much information you start to pull into your brain, all of it, and then you're trying to decipher it, discernment, what works, what's working for you, what's not, all that stuff. But if you are doing that out of, which overthinking is an over aroused nervous system. It's a reaction. So that would mean neurologically that you're not going past your amygdala or the reptilian brain and into the prefrontal cortex. So the more you practice this of like, hey, even if you're trying to figure something out, like a problem, especially something like that, like, medical or whatever, if you're trying to figure those things out and you're doing it out of desperation, out of lack, out of scarcity, out of fear, all that information you're taking in, it's going to be pretty difficult to discern what's right for you and what's right for your family. But if you can take in that information in a space of gratitude, in a space of love, in a space of abundance, which I know it doesn't feel like that at the time. I get it. This is why it takes practice, so that when these big things show up in life, that we are able to handle it in a good way. Like this is why it's the daily practice, you guys. It's a daily practice. But I guarantee you, as she's deciphering through all this information and trying to figure out what to do and how to help and get support and all the things, and I know she's super faithful. So as she's doing that and being in a mindset of all the things I said, of abundance, of faith, of hope, it shows our brain that emotion, those emotions will tell our brain that we are okay, that we can process this, we can learn this, we can memorize these things, we can keep things in our mind. But if we are not in that state of scarcity, meaning that if I don't think about this, hyper focus on this all the time, that I don't care, if we can get out of that and into a different state in our bodies. And gosh, how many times are we judging people for not being what we think that they are, what they should be? Somebody goes, we've seen life, right? We've been in life. We've seen people lose children. We've seen people lose spouses. we've seen people struggle with sickness and disease and all these things, and we think they should be handling it in a certain way, or that they, they're not showing enough, or that it didn't really hurt them, or whatever. Like, right? There's so much of that talk out there. But know inside of you that doesn't mean that you're not sad. It doesn't mean that you're not grieving or anything like that. But if we can get into a state of hope, love, abundance, those sorts of things, we can process things better. It's neurological. It's how we're built. It's how our nervous system works. It does not mean that you don't care if you're not completely focused on it all the time. It does not mean you don't care. Let that sit for a minute, because I can just think of how many people in my life, even myself, that going through a hard time or going through something hard, and people, having to justify, or, feeling like you need to say something, like just how hurt you are or how hard things are. Like, it's not saying it's not. I'm not saying that it's not hard, but and it's not that you're oblivious to it. It's not that you're naive. It's not that you're trying to push it down. You process it. I worked with someone while I was getting a divorce, and you guys, I put in the miles. I walked a lot. And you know what? It just felt good. It felt good because it was helping me process. I didn't realize that at the time. But as for, I heard this, gosh, you're just handling all this so well. Did you even care? Like, what was, did this even hurt you? And that's not it. And I just smile, and I would be like, no, I'm just really connected right now. I'm really connected. I'm letting all the feelings move in and out of me. I'm feeling them, and I'm letting them move out. And I use that through movement. But that did not mean that I didn't care. Does not mean that. And you do not need to over-explain that to anyone. So overthinking, if I worried about it, some of those pains that I was feeling could still be in my body because there was nowhere for it to go. So that's why it's so important to be in that default of hope, hopeful, loving, abundance, caring, all these really positive, intuition, staying open, not closing off, open-minded, big perspectives, just staying in this higher vibing environment does not make you naive, and it does not mean that you don't feel anything. It means that nothing needs to set in your body and you can process life. The more we can process life, the less thorns we have in our side that we're having to deal with later. If we're not processing, then those thorns keep irritating us over time, and they get aggravated every once in a while, and we can put band-aids over them. We can put salve on it, on the owies, on the injuries, on the thorns, on the thorn sites. But until you pull that thorn out and process that thorn, get rid of it, it will continue to bug you subconsciously. It'll be always there, right? So that's what a limiting belief is. Let's get rid of those as much as possible. Let's process them as much as possible so we can live a higher self. Okay, that's enough for number one. Ooh, this is number two. Number two is if I overthink, I can think myself into being smart. Anyone else out there like high achiever a bit when it came to studies? Or I honestly wanted people, especially my parents, to think that I was smart, that I thought so much that I didn't make mistakes, that there was no reason for this. This is something I put on myself for sure. Probably being a firstborn, I bet we could go into all sorts of psychology about that. But if I stayed in my head, I didn't think I was going to miss anything. I would know the next move. I would be able, I would think that. I would try to think myself out of these problems, or think myself into like a solution, or like, gosh, that was really smart. Oh my gosh, how I loved that. Why do you think my podcast is probably called Brilliant Wonders? Turns out brilliance is a little bit different now. Like what I think of brilliance is so much more powerful than being smart. But I did think that. I seriously was like, if I missed something, it was because I wasn't smart enough. So if I just continued to always like answer these problems in my head, or, scope it out. I'm an observer. Like I really observe things. But I oftentimes in the past would stay in my head doing that, making up stories in my head, trying to plan things out in my head, plan other people's lives out in my head, making up these stories so that I didn't miss anything. Or get this, like, how about after a conflict or after a hard conversation, replaying that over and over and over in my head, the story getting bigger and bigger and bigger, because it was like, were you smart there? Were you actually using your head? Like, did you say something wrong or did you say something right? Was I right or was I wrong? It's like, yeah, I was trying, like, overthinking. If you go to that, it's like, I want to be smarter than this other person. I want to win this conversation. I want to win this conflict, whatever it may be. It was easy to stay in my head and try to do that. No. At some point in my life, this limiting belief, this became safer to be in my head when I'm having these conversations with other people, for example, or conflict resolution, right? Conflicts, if there was, working on my own and then having to go home and say what we did, or how a project went, or whatever, like getting the achievement award for figuring something out. That felt so good. That was a super big reward on my brain, right? We did a lot of, like, on the ranch. We had multiple parts moving all of the time. So whether it was someone was driving, for example, getting kids to school or getting them picked up, between family of four and all the things that happened, right? Leaving vehicles in certain places to pick up the next day, or the next kid was going to be able to grab it and drive home, or whatever. Anyway, there was all these systems going on all the time. And I remember just here recently when I was home, I had said something about where to leave my car, and my dad said what he thought. And I was like, hey, that's really smart. And he's like, yeah, I used my head. And I was like, oh, there's a little wound in me there. That hurt a little bit, because it's true. It's like what you feel like is important, and coming from him, he did not mean it in a bad way. And I kind of laugh at it now, because you know what? I want to be in rooms of people who are way smarter than me, so I don't have to figure it out all the time. What a relief, right? But anyway, so if you're feeling like you're not smart enough, then we just jump into our head and try to figure it out, right? Which is, again, a hyper focus on it, and then we're not seeing the big picture. For example, on that whole piece, instead of like trying to figure it out on my own, like, Dad, this is what I got going on. Where do you think I should leave my car? He can be the smart one, right? Business owners, for sure. Like, this is a big thing, because there's a point in business. I love talking business, you guys, so bear with me. Insert a different piece of your life onto business, and you've got the same concept going on. There is a point where you realize that you can't do it alone anymore, and you need to start delegating and letting other people do the work. And that's hard. That's hard to do for somebody who's overthinker, or can go into your head, or sorry, that can go into your head and live there really easily, right? However, it was such a light on me. Owning a business was such a light on me because it was such a mirror into what I still struggled with. And that was to overthink, to overwork, and to um, be hyper focused instead of opening up and saying, hey, these are the things that need to get done. You're really good at this. Why don't you take a stab at it? Try it out, help me out. Resources. When you're overthinking and thinking it's all on your shoulders, it's like, I can't figure it out. I must not be smart enough. I'll go back in my brain. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And instead, it's like, oh, wonder if somebody has the answer to this. ChatGPT, Google, all that stuff has really helped with a lot of these, things of helping me get out of my head because it's at my fingertips when it comes to business stuff. But how often is that happening at home? Like, who can help me get my kids somewhere? Or I have to, bless me. There must be something going on in my brain right now. Being resourceful, when we are often thinking we need to overthink and like push through on this thing. Like if we can take a step back for a second, breathe, get out of our head into our prefrontal cortex and see the big picture of like, who could help me out with this? Or what could help me out with this? Or is this even something I need to be doing? That means when you can take a step back, you guys, you're out of that roadrunner feeling of like just pushing, pushing, pushing. And then you take a step back and you see the big picture. That means that you can honestly feel it in your brain. Like it stops like running into a hard wall and it kind of like settles. And then it's almost like your gaze gets bigger. Like it really does. Like neurologically, you guys, that's what's happening. And we are going to be helping people get past their neurology and into their old neurology, opening up new neurology for this growth to happen, these limiting beliefs to go away. Diving into your neurology is going to be huge. Therapy and all the things are great. Nothing wrong with that. I think it's wonderful. But when you get into the neurology and actually start processing the things that we're talking about, health is going to be so, so different. Oh, just makes me excited. Okay, the third one. If I continue to think about it, I will not let the pain happen again. If I continue to think about it, I won't feel the pain. If I continue to think about it, I won't even let that situation that caused me pain before enter into my life again. That one's kind of icky when I think about that one, but it's true. If I don't, I was playing basketball, we'll say that. I was playing basketball, something happened with a friend. We got into an argument or we didn't see eye to eye. I was made fun of, whatever. And then, you know what? I'm just not going to play basketball anymore because that didn't happen. Or then that won't happen. That pain won't happen again if I don't step out on the basketball court. I totally made that up. I can't even think of one time where this happened to me, but I see it. I see when something is embarrassing and it hurts. I've been watching my nieces and nephews in sports and stuff, and this is such a interesting time for them because they're figuring things out. A little bit of independence, a little of competition, a little confidence. I don't know, like there's just so much developing right now, and they're 9 and younger. So it's an interesting time. And as I'm watching and I'm understanding what I know now and seeing these things come through with them, whether it's embarrassment, cliquey friends, doing what they want versus what everyone else is doing, trying to fit in or not fit in, all these things are happening right now. And that is when these limiting beliefs start showing up. And I think, it's not that we can keep them from not happening. Like, I don't necessarily feel that way. I think a lot of life is not only unlearning, but like just figuring out who you are and where you come from. And, in that process, a lot of stories happen or a lot of things that you end up having or wanting to work through because you're wanting to be different did happen when you were a kid. under the watch of your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, guardians, whoever it was, And I often think they're like, oh, once you start digging there, it's all your parents' fault, or it's all your guardian's fault, or, your childhood, things. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not. But the cool thing about looking into neurological patterns, it's like we don't want to fester in that story and keep talking about the same story over and over and over again, because that's just, and with the same emotions, because you're going to start making that neurological pathway stronger and stronger and stronger. So it's almost like you're rewriting your story. You're rewriting what actually happened to change that. And, I'm just going to read that again. I have my notes here. If I continue to think about it, I will not let the pain happen again. It's like that old story, we have all the things that led up to the pain engraved in our head. So somebody can say something along that story in the present time, and it automatically, we shut it down. Somebody can, let's say you had a relationship, a romantic relationship that did not go well, or it was going really well and then all of a sudden happened. It's like, how did I miss those red flags? How many times have you heard people say, are there any red flags? It's like, yeah, those are the points, the pain points along someone's path to realize that somebody wasn't for them, or that they married them and it wasn't for them, or whatever, like it didn't work out, da 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 da. Where we have these patterns that kept showing up, and it's like, these are, if I stay in this story, I won't make that mistake again. And you know what ends up happening? You either don't ever get there to where you're wanting to go on the path of that story in the first place. That first story is going to be writing the story of every romantic relationship you have from here on out, if you don't get past the things, the limiting beliefs along the way. It's like how many things do you have in your life that you might have to like dig a little bit, but it's like, wow, I've had the same story show up over and over and over again, and we're just sick of it. No more, right? But in order to get rid of that story, we have to stay in our bodies and out of our brains, because our brain only knows that story to be true. And it will bring that story up in the next relationship, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, until you get past that story, get past the pain points, be able to breathe through. I'm not saying to go out with somebody with a bunch of red flags. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But if you're only looking for red flags, you will find them. Yeah. That's a romantic relationship example, but same thing happens in career. People who end up jumping jobs continuously, and it's like, what story are you telling yourself? Like, I know you're looking for something different, but here's the common denominator, is you. Some people have the same thing with workouts, with nutrition, with finances, like make a lot of money, lose a lot of money, make a lot of money, lose a lot of money. It's like this crazy cycle. And when you're looking at limiting beliefs, that is where you're going to find, if you are so truthful and aware and looking for the pain points, looking to shift your life in a way that's going to make a difference, to move you past these things, the limiting beliefs are where we have to go. And it's not like it's just gone right away. Like, no, you have to continue to work on it. But it doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing. And you don't have to explain it to other people. You just have to know that, hey, here's a sign that I'm reacting. I'm in my mind. I'm overthinking. I'm not saying not to think. Please think. But know the difference between overthinking in a stressful, like not just a stressful situation, because that's very subjective, but knowing what your body feels like when it's out of alignment. My one way that I know that I'm out of alignment is I'm overthinking. So if I'm overthinking, do not make any decisions right then. Get into alignment and then make your decisions. Then do the work of what needs to come next. But if you are over aroused, under aroused, not in alignment, and until then don't make the decisions. But until you know what alignment feels like for you, you won't ever know. It's like you're oblivious to it. There's no signs. You're not using yourself, your body, and your life as like a pulse point to know what's going on. And there's a blessing and a curse for being super aware. There totally is. The more aware I am, the more I know what is right for me. And the more I know what is right for me, the less regrets I'm going to have on my deathbed. That's the truth. And that's something I can live with. I can live with being over aware. I can live with trusting my intuition. I can live with, choosing the hard things. I can live with not being in the same wheelhouse as other people, thinking the same as others, living a life like everyone else around me. I don't. But I'm okay with that because I would rather have my last breath without the regrets. And I think that's what's really hard. And I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to pass away, obviously. I don't know how I'm going to feel about all those things. But what I can say is that I've had regrets in the past. I will probably have some regrets in the future. But the only time that I've ever regretted anything is when I made choices when I was not in alignment and truthful with myself. And I cannot be in alignment or truthful with myself if I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know how to ask for what I want. I don't know how to delegate. I don't know how to, there's all these things. And I'm a work in progress, just like you guys. But I encourage you that if regret is something you really don't want to have, then alignment could be your answer to a lot of these things. And it comes down to the little decisions, you guys, sometimes. Did I go to bed feeling hopeful, grateful, compassionate? Did I serve? Did I love myself today? Great. If I didn't, I'll do better tomorrow. Process why while I sleep, and then wake up and have that be the first thing on your mind, on your heart, you guys. Why am I waking up today? What do I get to experience today? How often have I told you that experiences, the failures, the successes, the nothingness, experiencing your day is how you're going to learn who you are. You're not going to learn it by staying supposedly safe and hiding in your house, or not going for your dreams, or quitting your job, or moving across the world. You're not going to, it's really hard to live a full life by doing nothing. So let's do some stuff. I interviewed a gal today, and she's for the 010 podcast. And gosh, she was a go-getter. I highly recommend that you go back and listen, or go and listen to it, or go back and listen to it. Her name was Nancy Griffin. I haven't published it yet, so I don't know what number that's going to be on the 010 podcast. But she talks about this year being the year of the horse. And believe me, I have seen that everywhere. Everywhere. But I don't know how long she's been around, but it's been many years. She's quite wise at this point. And she said that I was like, what's one of the most, the biggest things over the last few years, or whatever, like conference, or what's something that you went to that was just pretty empowering? And she talked about this year of the horse, and that this year of the horse is like go energy. Like, girls, let's go. Step it up, she said. And she mentioned that the speaker said, ladies, raise, it was a women's conference. Ladies, raise your hands. And they rose them to like here. So if you're just listening, it's like shoulder height. And she's like, girls, like, this is your life. Raise your freaking hands. And she like made them like push them up to the sky, right? And it's true. Like, stop just playing so small. It doesn't mean you have to do this huge, like huge things, but just get out of your own way. Let's get rid of these limiting beliefs so you can just show up. Be happy. Not even just be happy. You can choose happiness, but full of joy, full of energy. It doesn't have to be loud energy. It can be solid, just high. A high vibe does not mean that you're like bouncing off the walls. What it means is that you are so full that it takes nothing for you to give it away. And you're so excited to give anything that you can because you know it's coming in. That's high vibe to me. High vibe is ready. Just show me where I can give some love. I will do it. I'll be there. I'm doing it. I'll be there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful chatting with you today. I hope you took something out of this, and please like or subscribe to my channels. These will continue on here as we move along. I'm recording this before I have my first Steady Minds program. I don't want to say launch. I don't know what you call it when it's like a hybrid. But I'm going to a school on Wednesday to teach this to students. And I'm just so proud of the school district for letting this come in and start teaching a stress response and like what that actually means, and that everybody has it, and you know how to use the stress response as a way of conquering things and moving forward in the world. Because yes, when we're in high school we think that's our entire world, but we all know after high school there's a lot more world going on. There's a lot more to experience and a lot more to figure out. And I even if this is just the first time they hear it, you know, I've said that to people in schools a lot. I said, I don't care, you know, they might not understand the full picture, right, of what's going on when we're working through these limiting beliefs or, you know, all these things. We make it very relatable to the students. But they might not understand like the big picture of all this, but you know what? They're going to hear this again. And it's not going to be the first time. It's going to be another file in their brain. And maybe after the 20th, 30th time of them hearing it, they'll understand it. So wish me luck. So that's the Steady Minds program. I offer that to schools, and they get an online course where the teachers and staff get to go through it and help their students later with it. But first they need to learn it a little bit themselves, or like just understand what's going on, right? So I'm excited to go to the school and go and talk to everybody and see how things have been going working through the program. They've had it for about a week now. But I'm really excited to be in front of the kiddos, teaching them some yoga, teaching them some breath work, meditation, sound frequencies, all the things, but just making it in a really fun way, presenting it in a fun way so that we just have a spectacular day and get into that prefrontal cortex part of their brains. Okay, thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Actually, make it a brilliant one.